Dr. Nancy to the podium for her message this morning. What is the most important thing? If you were wondering about that, here comes the answer. What is the most important thing?
Well, I'm not going to tell you. You get to decide for yourself. How about that? Okay. This is our collection plate. Okay. What's the most important thing? And if I were to really expect an answer, it would be different for every person in this room. And that's the way it should be. That's good. So have you heard about the man who went shopping with his baby boy? The baby boy was in the shopping cart and obviously distraught and screaming. We've all experienced that with shopping carts and screaming unhappy babies and children. And okay, so the man, picture this now, the man's walking up and down the aisle, and he's saying this: "Don't yell, Bobby. Calm down, Bobby. Don't get excited, Bobby." And there was a woman standing next to him who turned and said, "You certainly are to be commended, speaking this way to your child, trying so hard to soothe little Bobby." And the bewildered man looked up and said, "Lady, I'm Bobby."
That's really good.
Okay. So, it may seem like more than Bobby could manage at the time, but his choice was to be a good parent, to take care of his son. His son was a priority. Now here's an experiment. This is part of your homework. Remember it now. Don't just listen and forget it. Every once in a while, pause and ask yourself, what is the most important thing I can be doing with my life at this particular time? So pause every now and then, whatever you're doing, just stop and ask yourself, and then of course listen for what comes up. But ask yourself, what is the most important thing I can be doing with my life at this particular time? Now, we've all been through all kinds of experiences, and at each stage of our life there was something that was most important that we paid attention to. And rather than staying in the past and what was important at one time, we need to update ourselves. We need to update ourselves. So right now, and I'm going to give you a moment to just be quiet with yourself. Ask yourself, what is the most important thing I can be doing with my life right now? Then ask yourself, Is there anything or anyone keeping me from doing it? Is there anything or anyone keeping me from doing it? Here's a story about Robert Reich, and I didn't really know who he was, but he was Secretary of Labor in President Clinton's administration at one time. And he told the story of a decision to do something almost unheard of, to resign from this high-profile and stressful job. In an article published in the New York Times and Washington Post, he said, quote, "I have the best job I've ever had and probably ever will have. There's no topping it." And it was true. He loved his job. And then he said, "And I also have the best family I've ever had. And I can't get enough of them." So there was a problem in his life. He could not give himself to his family and to this particular career at the same time. It just wasn't possible to do that. So he said, "I have to choose." I told the boss I'd be leaving and explained why. And of course, the boss was the President of the United States. And he took notice. So there was it was like an old Chinese proverb that came to him. It said, "He who chases two rabbits catches none." He who chases two rabbits. So he was wise enough what to him at that time was the most important thing. Now that may not be the most important thing for everyone. We wouldn't have anyone up in Washington. Maybe that would be good. No, I don't want to get into that. Oh. But it's something for you to ask yourself. Okay, there are people who recently have resigned. I don't know that this was the reason, but anyway. So remember to ask yourself, what's the most important thing I can be doing with my life at this particular time? See, we've never been at this particular time before. This is a new time. We've been through all the old times, and we made our decisions then, and some we probably regret making, and some we're happy we made. But whatever, update yourself. Bring yourself into the now, the power of now. And ask yourself. And you may be driving down the freeway or in a grocery store or whatever. What is the most important thing I can be doing with my life at this time? And then listen. Listen for the answer. And now it may not come to you immediately. It may come when you're doing some activity that all of a sudden you just feel so good about. Maybe it may be something you didn't expect to feel good about. But it may come to you. It may come to you while you're doing something else. Quite often that happens to me when I ask certain questions. And then quite often when I begin a certain project or decide to do something different, I'll know whether or not that's what I should be doing or what I want to be doing, or what fills my soul. What fills my soul? at this particular time. And the most important point is to listen for the answer. Listen for the answer. And keep listening. Keep listening for the answer, because it'll come. You see, we're connected by intuition, which is our connection with divine mind. And how many times have I not paid attention to it? Anybody here not paid attention and wish you had? Yes. Yes. We have that built-in communication. Some people call it innate intelligence. And that's what a lot of chiropractors and natural healers, the purpose is to release that innate intelligence within you so that your body can allow it to come forth. It's already there. It's already there. Remember the second question. What was the second question? Is there anyone or anything keeping me from doing it? And it's probably you. I know that's what my answer would be if I were to do it. So, in order to move in that direction, what changes might you make? What changes might you make just to move in that direction of what's most important to you? Now, I'm not advocating that you walk out of your job if that's your only livelihood at this point. But what are you willing to do? Some small change that you're willing, and the key word is willing. The key word is always willing. Not able. That's important. But willing to make a change. Sometimes we get so stuck in our patterns and in our ways that we don't see anything else. So we're going to talk a little bit about perspective as part of this. Now, I want to give you another part of your homework assignment. Okay, so this is the third part of your homework assignment. Anybody here want to be happier than you are now? Only 3 people? I better change my talk. Okay. Anybody here believe it's possible for you to be happier than you are? You don't, Sam? Okay. Here's what's suggested. This is a scientific homework assignment. You can rewire your brain, and there's been a lot of information in the Science Mind magazine and other places about how to do this. You can rewire your brain to be happier by a very simple exercise. Now, some of you are going to ignore this, I know. I used to all the time. But here's the exercise if you choose to do it. You can rewire your brain to be happy by simply recalling 3 things you're grateful for every day for 21 days. That's it, folks. Anybody here going to do it? Yeah, a couple people. Okay. You can rewire your brain to be happier by simply recalling 3 things. I like to do it in the morning in a gratitude journal, but you can do however you want to do it. Just recalling 3 things that you're grateful for every day, at least for 21 days. Now, I'm not advocating that you stop there, but make it your spiritual practice, perhaps. Because you see, what we're grateful for is an open invitation for more. An open invitation for more. And no matter what's going on in your life, there's always something to be grateful for. I have joined, it's a wellness organization, and they have a therapeutic pool that I do exercises and take water aerobic classes and so forth. We work my whole body, especially since the surgery that I had. And yesterday I was feeling a little down, but I went. And wouldn't you know, there was my lesson right in front of me. There was a man with no legs who was swimming in the pool with a noodle, and there's a chair, that most pools have now, that you can lower yourself into the pool, and so he had lowered himself into the pool, and by the side of the pool were his legs that he would put on when he got out, and he was just having a good time swimming back and forth in this pool and seemed to be the best of spirits. So there was my lesson right in front of me. And he spoke with me, and we chatted for a little bit, and then it was time. He said, well, it's time for me to get out. You can have the deeper end now. I said, okay, thanks. And so he upped himself from the pool, put on his legs, and it was interesting. He had his shoes and socks already in the feet of the legs, so he didn't have to put on his shoes and socks. But he sat, and his legs were cut off from just above the knee. I have no idea what it was from, whether he was a veteran or what it was. But anyway, that was the case. He was in good spirits. He got out. We spoke a little as he left. He spoke to the other people in the pool as he left. I didn't have to ask for a lesson. It was there. It was there. So pay attention. If you can't think of anything to be grateful for, just look around you. Pay attention. Pay attention. Whether it's a person begging for food on the corner, or someone who has no legs, or whatever it is, just pay attention and know that whatever you're going through. I was recently diagnosed with breast cancer, and so I've had a double mastectomy. And I was so grateful when the results came back afterwards that there was no trace of cancer in my body. I mean, that was the big gratefulness that I had. So no matter what there is in your life, there's something to be grateful for. So find it. Find it. And there are at least three things that you can recall and be grateful for. I've always thought about, and we're going to be talking about happiness in a little bit, but I've always wondered why the Declaration of Independence always said the pursuit of happiness. Why not happiness? If we are going just for the pursuit of happiness, that means we're always going to be seeking it. We want to accept happiness. We want to know it's possible in our lives. And the same thing is, do we want to be a spiritual seeker, or do we want to be a spiritual acceptor or receptor, or know that that's who we are already? Or do we always want to keep looking to be more spiritual? Well, see, you're not going to be more spiritual. You're already as spiritual as you're ever going to get. It doesn't mean you're not to do your readings and take classes and come to the center. But it means that what is within you, what you're seeking, is already within you. It's a matter of recognizing it and be grateful for it. Now, Neil Donald Walsh wrote a book called Happier Than God. And in it he says, life was meant to be happy. I didn't get that message when I was growing up. My father told me life was a struggle, and the more that I knew about that, the easier it would be. I wouldn't be disappointed. Anybody here get that message? Yeah, look at here. Well, did you know life was meant to be happy? How are we doing with that? How are we doing with that? Okay. So he says you were meant to be happy without guilt. Without guilt. And if you're already happy, you're meant to be happier. So if you're thinking, well, I'm pretty happy, you see, there's always happier. There's always an increase to our good. And if we cut it off somewhere, we're cheating ourselves of some of it. I once heard a lady, he says, describing a gentleman who was very wealthy. She said, he's got more money than God. You ever heard that phrase when people are talking about it? And that's how we mean this about happiness. He's more happier than God. Okay. Now, many people believe that life was meant to have a lot of pain in it. Did you ever hear the expression, no pain, no gain? Well, zonk that one. Zonk that one. That's not true. It's not true at all. Have you ever heard that suffering makes you more spiritual? You ever heard that old belief? Zonk that one. Zonk that one. We don't need it. Our culture has so completely adopted this idea that some people are afraid to be happy all the time. It's like some people are afraid to stop worrying because they think the devil or God or whoever, some outside force, is going to zap the rug out from under them. It's in the thinking of our culture. So when you talk about how you can be happier, don't be fidgety. See, the question is, can I be happier without feeling guilty? Now, do you think if you're happier, you're going to take somebody else's happiness away from them? Well, that could happen in some situations, but usually not. If you're thinking, you're breathing, such as you're breathing right now, you're not taking the air away from someone else. Think about that. So it's almost like that, you see. What you're doing with your mind, if it harms no one or yourself, is perfectly legitimate. In fact, in The Science of Mind, Ernest Holmes says something to the effect of, it's your spiritual obligation. It's your spiritual obligation. Now, did you ever think you could show that you're increasing your spirituality by becoming happier? Or would you feel guilty about that? Would you feel that you're taking it away from someone else? Well, you're not. You're not. In fact, what we give to the world and to other people, what we give to ourselves, is our way of giving to the world, of giving to the world. So Walsh suggests in this book that the idea that you can become happier should be shouted from every rooftop, pulpit, and lectern, and I'm doing my part. Oh, and I'm doing my part. So, say this with me. My life is meant to be happy.
My life is meant to be happy.
Okay. Life is meant to be happy. It is my divine right to fall in love with life. Let's hear that. It is my divine right to fall in love with life. Wow. Okay. One of the things we can remember as we go through life is that there is no spot where God is not. Whatever is happening in your life, God, or what we call divine intelligence, there's a divine intelligence in the universe that responds to our thoughts and feelings. So if we set the intention and know that we are inviting more happiness into our lives, guess what? Things are going to show up to present more happiness to us. If we go through life with the attitude that it's a struggle, it's a strain, and there's a glass ceiling to how much happiness I can have. And it may be because you've seen your parents only reach a certain level of happiness. And you think, well, that's it. You know, I have food on the table, I have this and I have that. That's it. What else is there? There's a whole world of things out there for you. So ask yourself, the German mystic Meister Eckhart said, God is nearer to me than I am to my own self. My life depends upon God's being near to me. He is also present in a stone or a log of wood, only they don't know it. And that's like some people. You see, God really is, or divine intelligence is present within everyone, except not all people know that. And that's one thing that this teaching emphasizes, that each one of you is a divine expression of the one power and presence in its entirety. Don't forget the in its entirety. So each one of us is an expression of the divine presence in its entirety. Wow, that's a lot of divine expression. That's who you are. So remember to retrain your brain to be happier. Recall at least 3 things each day for 21 days that you're grateful for. That you're grateful for. So in 21 days, you will have increased your happiness. And by increasing your happiness, you increase your expression of your spirituality. And so it is.
And so it is.
Let's have a little meditation time. So let's take this time to recognize who you are. You are the divine expressing as love, as gratitude, as happiness. That's who you are. So let me suggest that you take a moment now, right now, and think of 3 things for which you're grateful, just to yourself. What 3 things are you grateful for? And in moving forward into increasing your happiness, knowing that you have a divine right to do that. I invite you to choose an intention right now. Choose an intention that you are willing to see manifested in your life. Get clear about it. And now see yourself planting that intention into the fertile soil of subjectivity, knowing that the universe always says yes. See yourself now living in the manifestation of your intention. It's done. It's already done. It's happening. It's done. Be grateful that it has been done. And now we can release it, knowing that it is done. It's finished. And in gratitude we say, and so it is.